Again, welcome everyone. Like I said, my name is Ryan. I work here in the Office of Undergraduate Admission with the University of Toledo, and I'm so happy to be hosting today's alumni panel here with the College of Natural Science and Mathematics. We talk a lot about what you can do after you get your degree here at the University of Toledo, and so tonight we're going to hear about some recent alumni from the institution, kind of what they did while they were here in school, and then where they've gone since, and then we'll go over some other questions that we all might find interesting. Again, if you think of any questions on your own, please feel free to throw them in the chat. We will do a Q&A at the end, so if you don't want to forget them, put them in there, and then I'll read them off later or hang on to them for now. But with that being said, let's get to the reason that y'all wanted to tune in today, and that was to hear from some of our recent alumni. And we'll start with my new friend, Tyler. Tyler, can you tell us about your journey through UToledo and where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. Glad to be here this evening. My name is Tyler Kinner. I'm currently a research scientist at the Georgia Tech Research Institute, which is a university-affiliated research center, or UARC, for the Georgia Institute of Technology. My role here is I work in STEM education and workforce development, which is not too far of a cry from what I did at the University of Toledo and the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics, but certainly different, right? Not working in a lab anymore per se. Certainly not the kind of lab that I worked in when I was at UT. But I graduated in 2014 as a dual major in physics and chemistry, and then went into teaching. And so I taught for a few years here in Georgia. Then I did some central office administration work, and then landed here at GTRI a couple years ago. And so happy to answer any questions and excited to hear about all the other Rocket alumni here on the call.
Awesome, Tyler. Thank you. And then real quick, where did you grow up and where did you go to high school?
Yeah, so I grew up in Ohio, in a really small town north of Dayton, Ohio, and then went to high school there, of course, and then went to UT.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then we'll throw it over to Brittni to fill us in on her journey through UToledo.
Hey guys, so I grew up just south of Detroit in Michigan. I went to school in Riverview, Michigan, and then started at UToledo in 2014 with a major in biology and a minor in chemistry. I did some research at Toledo for like 2 years, which was a really good opportunity. And then after graduating, I took a gap year and worked as a veterinary assistant for a year before going to Purdue for veterinary school, which is what I'm doing now. I'm finishing up my third year. I start my clinical rotations in about a month, and then I am currently looking at jobs in Savannah, Georgia, in like shelter medicine.
Very cool. Thank you. Gabrielle?
Hello, I grew up in Toledo. I went to Notre Dame Academies. For the people who are like familiar with, well, I imagine you're all familiar for high school students from this area. I started UT in 2015 with a major in biochemistry. I did about 3.5 years of research. After I graduated, I got accepted to medical school at the University of Toledo, so I'm still here. And I'm finishing up my third year of medical school, so I'm halfway through my clinicals, and I start fourth year in 3 weeks, and I'm starting my application process for residencies. So I'm applying for emergency medicine. So wide range of things that you can ask me about.
Very cool. Good luck with the residency applications. And then we'll round it out. Ysabelle.
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ysabelle. I grew up in Elyria, Ohio, on the west side of Cleveland. Went to Elyria High School. University of Toledo, I majored in biology with a concentration in ecology and organismal biology. So I graduated from the Department of Environmental Sciences, and I graduated during the pandemic. So it was my course of action after graduation was a bit different than all of your guys's. I did take a gap year, and I worked at a microbiology lab in Columbus. And now I'm here in the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and I'm studying sustainability and development, and I'm preparing my first year's summer research program up here in Northern Michigan, doing water quality management. With a wide range of clients, tribal organizations to land trusts and the universities up here. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and I can answer questions about the environmental science department, biology department, and also the course of action I took too. It's pretty unique.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, I know this is an alumni panel, so we'll certainly talk a little more about everyone's careers and kind of where they've been, but I'm gonna ask everybody to kind of dig deep because I have a few college questions for you. So we can all think back to when we were in college or starting our undergraduate. Does anyone remember why they chose the University of Toledo? I know some of y'all are a little bit closer than others. Gabrielle, you seem like you might have an answer already as a local student. But I would love to hear some of the reasons, Dayton, Elyria, Michigan, another state I know close still, but anyone have any stories there?
Straightforward. I knew I wanted to go into medicine before in applying for undergrad. And this is true for anyone who wants to go into medicine. Medical school is very, very expensive. Toledo is actually one of the less expensive medical schools, and it's still very expensive. And that's just universally true. So I was trying to go to an undergrad that would leave me with as little debt as possible. UT offered me a pretty nice scholarship, and what's one of the wonderful things about UT, and this is still true in medical school going here, is that there are a ton of scholarships that are applicable to you, and they've got like a nice form where you can fill it out and you apply to like 100 some scholarships. And obviously they filter out which ones you're applicable or not applicable for. And it's a pretty easy way to get money because surprisingly, not as many people apply for scholarships as you'd think. And so having as little undergraduate debt as possible, even if you're not going into medicine, but it's a great goal to have, but especially if you're going into any kind of professional school, medical school, law school. I imagine veterinary school is probably pretty expensive too. Yeah, okay. You guys take care of way more species of animals than we do. So you guys have to know a lot more. So yeah, I mean, minimizing your debt. And it was close to my family. So I lived on campus, but I could go home if I needed to,
Yeah, I had some pretty similar reasons, scholarship wise, but then I also, after touring University of Toledo, I really loved all the research opportunities, especially knowing that I wanted to go into veterinary medicine, and I wasn't going to really get those research opportunities once I was in my profession necessarily, unless I wanted to get a PhD, which I just didn't want to do. So it was really nice to be able to get those opportunities as an undergraduate. Yeah, that's all I have to say. So
I think for me, it was when I toured the campus. I really enjoyed the campus. I really liked it. In Toledo was coming from a really small town, right? I mean, it was so small, I didn't even bother mentioning the name because 99.9% sure nobody's ever heard of it. Ansonia, Ohio, but coming from a really small town, Toledo was probably to me, it was the nice mix of a bigger city, but not so big that I would feel completely lost and that I wouldn't, really be able to navigate. And so that was probably what fueled my decision the most. The scholarships helped for sure. That was a close number 2.
All right, you guys have basically hit all of the marks for me as well. Number 1 was scholarship for me. Number 2, of course, was the atmosphere, but I was really actually looking at the residence halls, and I actually really like the honors residence halls. Gabrielle knows because she was actually an RA in my residence hall. And it was a perfect fit for me. And I really liked the honors residence halls. If you get into the honors college, there's your own residence hall, and it's right next to the natural science and mathematics college. So I would roll out of bed and go to class. But yeah, the architecture, the small school feeling, all of those were factors in my decision too.
That's awesome. Thank you, everybody, so much. I'm not surprised that scholarship amount was at the top of the list, but that's still a great reason to choose it. The next question I have, which certainly kind of shifts more towards the things you did after college, but it's a feeling I think that we all can kind of identify with. A lot of college graduates at some point during their college career are going to hit that feeling, usually their junior, senior year, where they're like, wow, what am I going to do when I graduate, right? That feeling of what comes next, how do I get there? For some of you, maybe it was a little clear, for some, maybe not as clear. Did you feel like you built any connections along the way at Toledo, whether it was your advisor, a faculty member, a success coach, anything like that, that you really felt like that's the person I can go to with these kinds of doubts or this nervousness about the next part of my career? And if you knew what you wanted to do, for example, how about assistance in getting there, getting to that specific point or where you wanted to be?
I had this, obviously I knew I wanted to do medicine, but I had this horrifying realization about my junior year that one, I actually have to take the MCAT. And also about 2/3 of medical school applicants don't get in on the first try, which is a very significant amount. You know, most medical schools have like a 3-ish% acceptance rate, and UT is definitely one of those. And so I was like, oh my God, I need a backup plan. I kind of realized a little bit late, you know. And so I got to exploring. And when I was at UT for undergrad, I got really involved in policy work, doing a bunch of changes, working with the residents, the residence halls. Sorry, my brain is like, I'm on my surgery rotation, so my brain's only halfway there. I worked a lot with the Title IX office. I got really interested in how university policy shapes students' experiences. And so I was really interested in seeing like how that could combine with our health and our well-being, because that's, you know, I wanted to go to medicine, and a lot of the people that I connected with were people that I could then continue that relationship if I applied for a Master's of Public Health at Toledo. And UT's actually got a really unique MPH program. They have, here's a quick little slide of a program that I didn't actually end up attending because I got accepted to school, but they have a public health policy and law focus for an MPH, which has a lot of really interesting implications if you want to go into medicine long term, because obviously, just like how university policy affects residents, healthcare policy affects patients and healthcare workers. And so the relationships I built helped me kind of point me towards that as my backup plan. But I also had a lot of people who I didn't expect to kind of be in my corner. Like I bonded with a chemistry teacher who I actually never had as a professor. I just worked with her as a, I can't remember, they've got a fancy name, but they are students who volunteer in like the orientation classes to kind of guide new students. So I did that. And she taught one of the orientation classes, and we pretty much bonded, and she was one of those like, hey, you want to come and just vent? You want a letter of rec? You want, like, I'm here for you. And she actually did write one of my letters for med school. And so you would be surprised how the connections you make on campus that are seemingly unrelated to what you want to do help with your future.
Yeah, so I know that I already mentioned I took a gap year. When I applied to veterinary school the first time, I had only applied to my in-state school because out of state is expensive. And I didn't get accepted. So my first person I turned to was the professor I was doing research with. And he was immensely helpful and supportive. And, you know, he ended up, I think he had written me a letter of rec before, but he wrote me another letter of rec my second time applying. He made sure that because I was doing my own research independent of like his main research project, he got me onto his research project so that I could have a publication the next time I applied to veterinary school, which was amazing. He was just wonderful. So definitely, whether you come to Toledo, I think that Toledo had amazing opportunities to make those kinds of connections with professors. But no matter where you go, definitely make sure that you get those connections with professors or faculty, because they will be there to help you. At least they were at Toledo. I can't speak for other schools, but
I'd say similar to Brittni, I worked in a lab as an undergraduate research assistant for, I would say, the majority of my time at the University of Toledo. And so that research advisor certainly became a source of information and advisement when it came to things in my career. You know, how do you navigate? What do you do next after you leave? What opportunities are there after you've done not just this 4-year degree, you know, in the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics, but also worked in this research lab and gained this experience. I would say alongside that, in addition to working in the research lab, I also tutored for an organization called TRIO, Student Support Services, and the the faculty over that, as well as the graduate assistants that were placed in there, were really useful for kind of the things that I wouldn't bring to the research advisor, which was much more of the kind of the ranting, the frustration, the understanding, maybe the non-academic parts of college and what to do afterwards, and kind of resume prep and things like that. And so it was useful to have multiple folks who I could kind of turn to as a support network for different things that I needed as I was at Toledo.
Yeah, for me, I really appreciate the fact that you said, Ryan, that you have the senior scaries a bit when you graduate. And even now, these high schoolers, I mean, you guys probably are having these doubts and turning to people that you trust. And for me, this was especially helpful during the pandemic. And I wasn't doing any type of research other than an honors thesis with one of the faculty advisors in the environmental science department, who I had previously taken classes with. And I think it's really important to uplift what you guys are all saying, because professors aren't there to report to the university. They're there to report to students. And it's true at Toledo that they really do serve students, and they don't serve any other roles but to help you guys out. And I really turned to my advisor for that support, especially during the pandemic. And I also interned at the Toledo Lake Erie Center. So my supervisor there was really helpful for my recommendations to grad school later on, and for securing a position up at the biological station this summer too. I'm still in contact with her. So I would say all the faculty and staff and professors, you'll really get to know them. And there's a few of them that you'll take interest in their research, for instance, and they'll be there to support you when you need it. Even if it's just, a simple like, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? But also a recommendation, which is really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. This next question is one that I kind of get a lot. Recruiting out here on the East Coast, where not many people have heard of the University of Toledo. I think we can all agree. It doesn't really have a name that you necessarily can think everyone on earth knows this school. It has like a reputation that everyone considers, rock solid. Now that you've all kind of moved on out of the university, do you feel like you were as well prepared for your different career paths and different schooling as students who went to those schools that maybe do have the name that is bigger and more eye-catching? Do you feel like you still got a good education here, even though it wasn't necessarily a familiar option?
Honestly, I think if you're interested in doing research, UT probably prepares you better than the big name schools, because a lot of the big name schools will, if your research involves using any kind of expensive technology, which chances are, if you're going into STEM, it does. A lot of those big name schools will have the graduate students, manage the NMRs and any of the spectroscopy equipment, the stuff that costs like $500,000 to $1 million that hangs out in the basement of NSM. And like you as an undergrad will never touch it. You might like look at the graphs or the spectroscopy and all of that, but like you'll never actually do much with it, because the school's like, you are a liability. But at UT, I actually got to do a lot of hands-on independent research work. And I personally while I was under one PI, I got to use equipment from several other different labs that I don't think I would have been able to get to do if I went to somewhere like Harvard or Yale or, like your big name schools. And that helped me really solidify my understanding of chemistry and biochemistry and all that. And it ended up being kind of helpful on the MCAT, and ended up being kind of helpful in med school, because no matter where you go, you're going to take a biochemistry course.
Yeah, I agree with everything Gabrielle just said. And just kind of going off of that, I feel like even had I not done the research that I did, I know in my senior year at Toledo, I had to take a bio writing across the curriculum course, where you go through like scientific journals and read research papers and dissect them. And you get a really good understanding of how to read them, and just how to like analyze what they're saying, I guess, and do it pretty quickly. Whereas a lot of my classmates in vet school, when we do get those research papers that they want us reading and understanding, they have no idea what to look for. They don't know how to, like, I don't want to say skim it, because like you shouldn't just skim it, but skim it for the important things and read the graphs in it. Like my roommate in particular, I basically just like walk her through them at this point anytime we get them. And I don't think I would have as good of an understanding if I went to a different school.
As somebody who is now kind of embedded within, or at least adjacent to, a flagship research university, of course, down here in Georgia, I have an undergraduate research project like what we're talking about here that's running this summer. There were 2 spots on the team, and I think over 20 students applied for it just for this one project. And so that is to say that you've kind of got a spectrum, I would say, of large flagship research universities, and then those institutions that maybe don't do so much research that is published. Maybe they're primarily serving undergraduates. They don't really have research labs with graduate students. The nice thing about the University of Toledo is that it's in the middle, probably more towards that flagship research university part, where you've got professors that are both instructors but also researchers, but they have lab groups, right? They have graduate students, they have postdoctoral researchers who, alongside your main research advisor, the professor, you can learn a lot from these other people as well as have projects that you can contribute to. And like Brittni mentioned, be an author on a paper and actually, leave in your 4 or 5, however many years it takes, leave your time in undergrad at UT with some real evidence of what you can do beyond just your transcript, which is really, really important. And I would say was probably the most valuable thing I left UToledo with, was not necessarily the classes that I took or the GPA that I had, but the experience that I had in the lab.
Yeah, echoing off of what you said, Tyler, I was going to mention the environmental science department has service learning and experiential learning opportunities, especially for those that are interested in ecology and environmental sciences, earth, natural sciences. And that's going out in the field, doing field trips and learning firsthand how people do research either on the lake, terrestrially. And I think that was something I've never been experienced. I wouldn't be able to experience here at Michigan, actually, not through my coursework. Another thing was the technical skills that I learned at the university. If I needed help with a really big project, like a technical application for environmental sciences is GIS, it's mapping. If I wanted to know how to fix a map, I don't think I'd be able to get the instruction I would have gotten if my class sizes were as small and as, I didn't know the professor as well. And I think that's really helpful for not just this type of work on your resume, it's on your resume, how to do GIS, but like you can apply it later because you actually know GIS, it's not just on your resume. And then the last thing I'll say is, people know your name. They can recommend you for certain scholarships or research opportunities. And that's another reason why, Toledo was so instrumental in me getting into this grad school program.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, so much. I'm going to give you all a brief respite from talking about your professional careers and research experience and ask a fun question. So where did y'all meet? I know it's exciting. It's this kind of panel. Where did y'all meet who would become your college best friend, or the person you got the closest to in college? What's the origin story? I think that a lot of people have very fun origin friend stories. Some of them, it's normal. It's like, oh, orientation or my roommate. But anyone have any fun ones or want to shout out their friends?
So
go ahead, Ysabelle.
I want to go first just because my best friend actually FaceTimed me yesterday out of the blue. And I met her through a gen ed biology class and chemistry class, my first and second year. And I didn't really know her that well, but your gen ed class is very big. A lot of you will probably take it as a first year student. And I guess some of the people on my floor knew her really well. And what happened was she was almost going to fail this gen ed class. So it turned out that I was doing pretty well, and I tutored her for a little bit. We studied together, and now she's my absolute best friend. So, we're closer than the other people in our study group, I should say. So that's my great story.
Yeah, she was going to fail gen ed math and I saved her is a great origin story. Anybody else?
We were randomly paired freshman year roommates, which that's, whatever. But apparently we're like doppelgangers of each other. And I am literally a day older than her. And we became best friends. It was really awkward because people would mistake us for each other. And it didn't help that I didn't wear glasses when I was first came to UT. And I got glasses because I realized how blind I was once I got into those big classrooms. But she also wears glasses, so that made things worse. And she was an engineering major. I obviously engineering is not. I love anyone who wants to do engineering. It's not for me. And so they'd be like, "Oh my God, Julia," and would ask me things about it. And we're like, no, you got the wrong person. And they'd do weird double takes. But yeah, we were just doppelgangers randomly paired together.
I would say for me, it was just the people that I was in classes with. As a physics major, those classes and physics, chemistry, double major, either one of those, although chemistry was bigger on average. As you go up in years, those classes get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And so, at a certain point, you get to that senior year and you've taken probably a dozen classes or so with kind of the same group, small handful of people. And so those are the people that I definitely keep up with most. And I think that's a really nice part of the experience in the College of Natural Sciences Mathematics, is having that smaller, almost cohort of people that you go through the coursework with.
Yeah, so my best friend, we had pretty much all the same classes together and never really knew each other until our sophomore or junior year when we got into the same research lab. And we're also taking all the same classes. So he and I were together all literally just 24/7 because we'd studied over the weekend. And yeah, that was pretty much it. We still talk. We actually over winter break went and visited Dr. Chen, our research PI, together. So good time. Yeah.
Gabrielle and Brittni, I've seen now both of your cats. So I have to ask, what are your cats' names and what is their personality type?
Well, there's actually 3 cats in this house and a golden retriever that's down here. That's Bo. He's your typical golden retriever, obnoxious. The cat I was just holding was Moose. He's also tiny, but obnoxious. Bo, the giant golden retriever who's much bigger than Moose, is terrified of Moose. And then there's Bear and there's Gus. Bear likes to pick fights. Gus is scared of everything.
Wow, that's a real crew.
So
there's also an infant here.
So the cat that wanted to introduce himself is named Catsby, and he does not care about anything. He is a pet professor, is what they're called, at Purdue. So I take him in for the different veterinary and nursing students to have physical exam labs on. So he actually holds his weight. And then I also have another cat named Tilly, and then a guinea pig named Gus, and then my 60-pound lab mix who's now squeaking a toy if you hear that.
That's incredible. Ysabelle, Tyler, I don't want to leave you out if you had any pets you wanted to shout out. No pets, Ysabelle?
My sister has a cat, and I get pictures from her all the time. His name is Shumi.
Oh, so you're a cat aunt. That's still something.
I have 2 dogs, but unfortunately they don't let me bring them to work. I really wish they would.
That's a bummer.
Be
You
nice.
should quit. I know we're at 6:30, so I wanted to be respectful of everyone's time. So students, if you have any questions that you want me to ask the alumni for you, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Y'all have used Zoom now for 2 years, so you probably already know it. But if you want to ask it anonymously, you can send them directly to me. So just send them to Toledo Admissions or UToledo Admissions. If you want to ask them just publicly, that's also perfectly fine. I can read them on your behalf. If you'd rather ask it out loud, so you can articulate it better, that is also perfectly fine as well. For my alumni panel, this is a question I like getting when I do panels, so I'll pose it to all of you. Is there a question you were hoping I would ask, or something that you kind of came into this wanting to talk about? Because if so, here's your free pass if you did have something in mind. If you don't, no big deal. But Ysabelle, I see you shaking your head a lot. So did you have something in mind that you were hoping I'd ask? Or were you just agreeing with the idea that I could ask?
I do have a question. Yes, I have a question. Okay. Sorry. I don't know if this will be relevant to other students, high school students, but I did a panel like this last year, and they asked what my favorite restaurant was in Toledo. And if anybody is, still touring Toledo or thinking about going to Toledo, you should try Rice Boulevard. I see Gabrielle. I used to live above Rice Boulevard. It's right next to Barnes and Noble, and I still think about it. I get their tofu bento box.
That's incredible. Pizza Cat for sure, but anyone else can weigh in with their options.
Carlos Poco Loco. It's on Adams Street. It has these bomb like pineapples that are grilled, and then they fill them up with like chicken or shrimp and then all this good stuff that you then can put it into tacos. It's divine.
I'd say for me, it was the grape leaf, which is like Lebanese Mediterranean. I think the closest one to campus was on Monroe, but they were, last I recall, which is several years ago, there were like 3 or 4 in Toledo.
It still exists.
I really like Uncle John's Pancake House. For anyone who likes breakfast food, delicious.
Absolutely. So we got a question here, and Ysabelle, this one is directed for you. It said, Ysabelle said she took a unique route with her education, and I'm curious on that. So can you elaborate a little more kind of on that educational path?
I think what I meant by that was after undergrad, I worked at a microbiology lab. And in undergrad, I knew in my heart that I didn't want to work at a lab. And this might be true for some of you students, but I know that, I'm a people person, and I don't want to be stuck inside all day doing a lot of technical skills, but I really do enjoy it. And so I decided that with my year off, that I would just build those technical skills and research what I actually wanted to do. And in undergrad, I did an independent thesis, I think I mentioned, on urban farms in Toledo. So those are like community gardens, and there is one urban farm really close to campus on Bancroft, and I did my research with urban farmers. And I think being outside, doing environmental science outside was really what I wanted to do. So through my thesis, I was able to connect with other people, and it got me into grad school in sustainability. So I'm not doing any lab work right now. I'm going to study water in this summer, and I'm really excited about that. So I'm really excited about being outside, not stuck in a lab all day. I mean, some people really like that, but it's just not for me.
Awesome. Thank you. 2 questions came in that kind of, I think, are very similar ideas. So I'm going to kind of push them together. And if the person who asked it wants it expanded on, just let me know. But for Gabrielle and Brittni going to medical school and veterinary school, what do you think was on your resume or your application that really made you stand out? That was a UToledo experience. What was kind of the opportunity you feel like that was presented that you took advantage of that kind of made it, the application they wanted to read and review?
I'm a pretty weird person, and I've got a pretty bad ADHD. So I don't think it's one thing, because I'm not good at doing just one thing. I think, well, one, I did have a lot of research publications because I started my freshman year. Like, I think it was January of my freshman year that I started working in the lab. And it helped out that the work that I started doing initially was applicable to multiple projects for different graduate students. So I racked up a fair amount of publications pretty quickly, and doing abstracts and all that. I also did a lot of like atypical stuff for medical students. A lot of medical students are like, okay, doing research, pretty common. I'm not discouraging it. I actually highly recommend it, because I got a job offer based off of my research at like the National Cancer Institute. So if I didn't get into med school, I'd go hang out in Maryland. But anyways, so a lot of med students do research and they'll do like medical missions, and they'll be like, look, I'm in an honor society for pre-meds, which like, that's not bad. But also you and the other like 10,000 applicants this admission team is looking at. And so I think the fact that I did a lot of advocacy work, that I did policy work, that I spoke at conferences about my policy work, that I literally have made changes to UT's policies, that I made an organization based off of preventing sexual violence and addressing issues of sexual violence, that I actually up until very recently was a rape crisis counselor. And so I'm someone that hotline, something just happened, they'd call the hotline number, I'm the person that pick up. I was also like a debate coach for one of the local high schools that literally just stopped doing it this year. And I tutored, like I was literally just doing a bunch of things that are not super common. And I think that kind of intrigued them because they're like, what's going on with all this? Like, this is a lot. And as I discovered, I am just a lot. And apparently UT liked that. So that's probably what happened.
That is such a fun answer. I love it.
Yeah, I think I've talked about my research a lot. I think that definitely added to my application to veterinary school. But I think also just the different, like various different things, kind of similar to Gabrielle, I didn't do that much. That's real busy. But I was like a supplemental instruction tutor, which if you don't know about the SI program at University of Toledo, it is absolutely wonderful. It helped me do a lot better in my classwork. And then it also helped me when I was a leader understand that classwork even better. Sorry, my cat's now playing with the laptop cord. And then on top of that, just I was also like a lab TA for the undergraduate like biology labs my senior year. And then also just like stuff outside of Toledo. Obviously the question was more geared towards what you did at University of Toledo. But working as a veterinary assistant, having experience in that field was wonderful. And then I also did a couple of service trips with the Honors College to Nicaragua and Guatemala, which I think also kind of made me stand out just a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. This is a question I actually thought could be really relevant. And Tyler, I'm interested to know, you said that you're working right now overseeing undergrads doing research, right? So,
yeah.
So what would be your advice to these, these future undergraduate students when getting involved with a research facility, kind of what they should expect or think about, or what, they could look forward to?
I mean, I think looking forward to, and this kind of goes to what the other panelists have been saying with, getting these publications and getting this experience, looking forward to the opportunity to build expertise. That's the other thing. Like, yes, the publications, like the things that go on your resume and on your CV, your vitae and your applications to graduate school, like those are all really important. But at some point, when you get past that, you'll be a professional, right, in a career, and you'll be relying on your expertise. And in undergraduate research is a really unique opportunity to build expertise that, even though, right, I do not go and work in electron microscope in my work ever, but I did a lot of that in undergrad. And so it's a unique expertise that I have that allows me to do what I do in ways that other people who didn't have that experience couldn't, right? They don't know what that experience is like. They don't have those skills. They haven't been there and done that work. And so it's just a really unique opportunity to build that expertise. And so with that in mind, be willing to ask a lot of questions, to do a lot of research. You are not going to know things. And get past your own concern that you are not going to know things, right? You are going and you're majoring in a science or a math major. And so I'm going to roll the dice and say that you are probably a pretty smart student. You are probably used to doing pretty well in your classes. That may not be true, but I'm going to assume it's probably true for most of the people. And undergraduate research will just be different because you won't, research is literally not knowing the answer because the answer does not exist. So you have to be comfortable asking a lot of questions and not knowing and learning how to collaborate, how to do research, how to ask good questions. But alongside of that, that'll just be skills that you'll use at Toledo, wherever you go after Toledo, wherever you go after that. It really, I mean, it becomes who you are in a way, and it's a really great opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. It reminds me a lot of, I forget which faculty member said it, but during one of these NSM webinars, they were talking about how Toledo is a school where you don't have to come in fully formed. Like you can come in, and as long as you want to grow and you want to get better and you want to learn, they're going to present you with these opportunities, where at other institutions, you know, they're kind of put on the top shelf and you have to already be the best student. You have to already be the best researcher. Whereas here, there is an entry point for everybody. And as long as you demonstrate the desire and the growth and everything, then you're welcome into it. And the way that you're all shaking your heads, I hope that was true for your experiences as well. Great. So the faculty member wasn't making it up. That's good to hear. We are very quickly running out of time, which is crazy because this has been so much fun to talk to you all. And I want to thank you again for giving us your evenings. I have one last question for everybody, and I'm going to ask it and then vamp a little bit so you can think about the answer. And then, you know, feel free to let me know what you have, but it's just the basic, but still classic. What is your best advice to a prospective undergraduate student? Not even just for Toledo, obviously is a Toledo panel, but just going into their freshman year of college. What's that piece of advice you really think is worth sharing, or you like to give these prospective students? And while you're all thinking about it, I will give another quick shout out to all of my undergrads or future undergraduates here in the chat today. If you have not done so already, again, we have opened up the undergraduate, oh my gosh, orientation. How is that a word? I can't remember. Gail, I'm losing my mind. We've opened up the orientation schedule.
Launch?
Rocket launch. Thank you.
There you go.
Wow. There, see, Gail, that's why we're such good teammates.
There you go.
We've opened up Rocket Launch for the summer. So if you have not yet paid your enrollment deposit, remember, you go into your MyUT account, you can pay the enrollment deposit there and then sign up for new student orientation, Rocket Launch. You also, if you're going to live on campus, you can pay your housing deposit and do the housing application. And that one especially is big because housing selection is going to come up here in just about a month or so. So it'll be here before you know it. Your senior year is going to get busier and busier if it's your senior year. So please, if you haven't already, get that stuff done. That way we can kind of settle into what the summer is going to be. I think I've bought everybody enough time to give us their sage wisdom on college and how to be successful. Not to hype it up too much, but whoever wants to start, take it away.
Personally, I think the best advice that I could have gotten was just to like put yourself out there. I'm a very introverted person. And I feel like I didn't do as much as I could have my freshman year at Toledo. My like sophomore year through senior year, I think I did pretty well with like putting myself out there and getting more involved, but I wish I had started that earlier. So keep an open mind. You don't just have to get involved in things that, you know, go perfectly with whatever your major is. Definitely try other things. But yeah, just go outside your comfort zone, I guess, is the main thing.
Yeah, I just want to jump on that. Thanks for mentioning that, Brittni. My sister is graduating high school this year, and she's also going through this process. And I think the best advice I can give her is do what you would like to see yourself do. So don't do things that your friends want to do necessarily. You have great friends, I bet, and you have great family, but they want to see what's best for you, but you know what's best for you. So join an organization that is fun or maybe does go along with your academic program. But I joined a sustainability organization on campus, and my degree is in biology. And now I'm in a sustainability program in grad school. So, you know, put yourself out there, like Brittni said, but, do something that you see yourself doing and that you enjoy doing, not just because your friends say it's cool, because at the end of the day, it's your degree, and you're going to get the most out of it if you do what you'd like to do.
This is like, I guess, kind of generic life advice, but something that I kind of wish somebody would just like sit down with me as an undergrad and like say this to me like a million times, probably several times, like throughout my 4 years. There will be experiences you will have and people you will meet that you will never expect. And there will be times in which you will feel lost and overwhelmed and like you can't do this, that you're not smart enough, that you're not capable, any of that. That's okay. That's part of life. Unfortunately, it doesn't end after undergrad. The best way to approach those situations are to find your people, whether that be your family at home, your friends at home, people that you have, connected with on campus, faculty, whoever, and go to them and let them just be there to support you, fill your feels, figure out how you need to move forward, and take another step forward. It is okay. My path to med school was not perfect and beautiful. I did not have a beautiful GPA. I did not have a beautiful MCAT. I'm just very weird, and I guess they liked that. So it's okay. It's okay to feel lost and to explore.
In a similar vein, I guess, just being okay with being uncomfortable, like not in I am worried about my safety, but more of just like, this is an experience that I have never been in before, and I just don't know, right? And so just being comfortable with not knowing, being comfortable with new things, challenging yourself, like others have said, maybe there's something that maybe is of interest to you, but you don't know until you try. And thankfully, a lot of things like, undergraduate research experiences or clubs, there's a finite timeline to them. So if you don't enjoy it, you can stop doing it at the end of the semester or the end of the summer or the end of the academic year, and you don't have to commit to another round of it, which is a nice thing. That will not be true for everything else in life. So take advantage of it while you can.
Wow, everybody. This was a Hall of Fame alumni panel. That was great. Not only do you guys know about like numbers and compounds and like stuff like that, but you are very good at giving college advice, and I appreciate that. I want to thank you all so much again. Hopefully you join us again in the future, because these are always so meaningful for our prospective students. Thanks to our prospective students for giving us some of your time. I know school is wrapping up. If you have finals coming up, if you have graduation on the horizon, try and enjoy the journey if you can. Senior year ending is stressful, but I promise it's something you'll look back on hopefully positively, and then you have the summer to look forward to, and then before you know it, you're going to be grabbing a futon by one end and moving it into your dorm. So get ready for what's going to be a big adventure. If y'all have questions, please feel free to reach out to us here in the Office of Undergraduate Admission directly, or reach out to Gail in the College of Natural Science and Mathematics. But with that being said, I will give everyone else 9 minutes of their evening back. So thank you all so much, and go Rockets.